Right, so let's talk about some movies for a bit, right? We'll kick things off with Past Lives, right? Um, we've been hearing about this show for a while now, especially it's been, well, I should say it's been getting like a ton of critical praise, right? But honestly, all I just knew is this that it had Korean actors. That's really all we knew going in.
Right.
So we just sort of went in and I was like, okay, let's see what this show is about, right? So in a nutshell, what it's about, right? Because the story is simple yet very complex, like in an emotional standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So we're introduced to Nora, right? She is this young South Korean girl. So basically it kind of sets the story up via flashback, right? So she's this kid, and for reasons, her mom migrates with her to the United States, right? Leaving
Yeah.
behind her father, well, leaving behind Nora's father because he's a filmmaker, right? Um, During her time there, I should say, during her childhood there, basically, she meets this boy in school, right, by the name of Hee Sung, right? And instantly, of course, Hee Sung falls for Nora, and Nora, kind of falls for him in a bit, right? But yeah, when Nora leaves now, Hee feels bad about it, right? So cut to some years later, Nora is all grown up. She's an American citizen now. She's a student, actually, and, she just kind of trying to get her life together. Um, he, on the other hand, just kind of reluctantly decides, you know what, let me just see if let me just see if I could find her online, right? That would be Facebook.
Right.
And he finds her, right? And then, well, they just basically start talking to each other via Skype. That's basically in the early days of Skype, right? So around like the 2000s, like late 2000s, if I think it was, right?
Yeah.
At that point now, for reasons, Nora kind of cuts the relationship off because she feels like
Yeah.
this is kind of hampering. This more or less get in the way of her accomplishing her goals, right? So we cut to like about a decade or so later again, and Nora is now married to this Jewish American. They're
Right.
both writers now, well, both authors, sorry, and Hey Sung, sorry, is getting over pretty much a rocky relationship, right? And well, through some circumstances, he decides to, well, he's actually kind of invited, if you will, to come to the States to meet with Nora, right? And yeah, when they meet each other, well, again, just keep in mind this is like the first time they've seen each other in the flesh for like over 2 decades. Yeah,
Right.
the show kind of plays with the idea of whether they'll hook back up, but it's said early on that yeah, this relationship is, or at least the possibility of that isn't meant to be, right? But it's just a matter of them finding
Right. Right.
closure, like just understanding. Look, we could be friends, but we can't be anything beyond that, and I'll stop there, right? So, yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on past lives before I share my thoughts.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I just appreciated how mature this was. How realistic it was. It made a lot of sense in terms of the kind of decisions characters would make and how, and it wasn't like sappy sentimentalism that a usual American kind of show would do in its own way. It really feels modern and mature and updated in its own way. For what it is, and I really appreciated that. That's one thing I really appreciated. But the metaphors for what the past lives is great, right? It's not they kind of it's supposed to be the metaphor of kind of reincarnation, but that's not what they're talking about with the quote unquote the ending, especially with the quote unquote other life kind of thing. To make it work. The relationship with the her and the husband and him and what they do with that, I thought was great because there's a slight racial kind of conceit, but they don't, throw it in your face. Just subtly there, really good character work, great acting. And it comes together so well. I thought this was ultimately really, really excellent.
Yeah,
Great
totally agree.
character stuff.
Yeah, totally agree, man. And just to touch on characters, yeah, the characterization for this is great, though. You
Yeah.
really like sympathize and like, I should say, love, Nora and Hee Sung, right? You get where
Yeah.
both characters are coming from, why they are the way they are, why Nora is always so goal oriented, why Hee Sung
Yeah.
is always reserved when it comes to his emotions, right? And yeah, when they meet up, it plays out. Actually, the way it should. I'm not gonna say that it is predictable at all, but it plays out the way it should, right?
Yeah.
This is the debut feature from Celine Song, and I thought that
Right.
she just knocked it out of the park here. This was a and she also wrote it as well too, right? So as
Right.
far as the screenplay and the direction goes, this was great, right? The cinematography was great as well, and apparently they just shot it with 35 millimeter film. But I just
Nice.
thought that there was, I mean, it just looked gorgeous, man.
Hmm.
Whether it's scenes in South Korea or stuff in New York, for example, this is where Nora resides, right? Yeah, I mean, just some great shots there, right? Um, as I touch on Noah's husband, right? There's a great moment. Actually, there's some like there's great lines that's littered throughout this film, right? So one in particular involves you see both Nora and her husband Arthur, who is played by John Magaro, yeah, in bed, and he's talking about how when she's dreaming, well, she talks in her sleep basically. Yeah, she talks
Right.
in Korean, right? And early on you see him like speaking to her, or at least with a bit of Korean that he knows, right? And just
Right.
like, well, how he says it, this paraphrasing here, you dream in another language or you dream in Korean. You know what I mean? Like, just setting up the
Yes.
idea that I want to know what it is you're dreaming about. I want to connect with you in that level, and that's just like so poetic, dude. Just so gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Um, just the dialogue between Nora and Hee Sung is great though. It's very before sunrise, kinda in a way, and even early
Yeah.
on you get that kind of vibe
Very,
where
very
it's just
yeah,
casual
very, very
talking, but it like if you just kind of look in between the lines, there's hints. I mean, there is chemistry throughout, right? But there's hints of, oh, will they or won't they? Will they hook up or will they not hook up, right? But yeah, as I said, I love how this show kind of goes against the whole Hollywood romance you know ideology where it's like, oh
right.
well, in a show like this they're supposed to meet up because that's how movies like this supposed to work. But it's like, no, that's
Yeah.
not how that's not what they're telling here, right? It's just this realistic and very relatable. I mean, I can relate to this, right? In more ways than one. Idea of, yeah, it's your first love, yeah, but and you kind like deep down inside you wish it worked out between you and her, but
Right.
it was just too little, too late, man. Just it wasn't destined. Just things didn't play out the way things didn't play out the way it should. But it's how you and that other person can move on and still be friends, right? And I love how the
Right.
show captures that. The ending is great as well, especially where both
Yeah.
characters end up. I thought it was fantastic as well, right? And yeah, as a whole, I absolutely enjoyed this though. This really lived up to the hype and more. This is one of my
Yeah.
favorite films of 2023. Will it be in my top
Hmm.
10? It could. It
Yeah.
could. Maybe.
Possible.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I know that this, like, come years, and you're gonna be hearing about this show. And I'll close with this, right? I do hope that more people do check it out before years end. Who knows? Maybe I might get a little Oscar nom for something. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, though, as a debut, as a just a drama, as just a realistic take on the romantic film genre, yeah, this absolutely worked for me, man. So rating wise, I'm
Yeah.
gonna give this a lighter, decent 4.5 out of 5. Easy, one of the best films of 2023, bar none. Yeah, Ricardo, your
Yeah.
final
Yeah.
thoughts on rating?
Yeah, I'm glad you make the comparison to the before trilogy, because that's what it kind of reminds me of a little bit, right? A lot of it works in that way, and it's really, really smart storytelling, and just again, mature relationships with mature people. That's what I like. The one thing that just absolutely ruin a lot of romances is just how silly it is. Like, I don't expect something to be rom-com. You don't have to be, you know, avoid the rom-com conceit entirely, but you just like make it a little reasonable for what it is. That's just me. Whatever. But yeah, thoroughly loved this. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, and yeah, rating, I'll probably get like an 8 out of 10 as well. Really, really well done in my humble opinion.